Hello, I'm Odin, and today I'm going to build another Star Wars inspired prop. And this build is another collaborative build with my friend over on the channel, Try to Finish Something. We're going to build a storage case for thermal detonators. Okay, so this thing is really cool. So Shawn tells me it's an ammo box. I don't know what type of ammo would actually go in here, but it's certainly some sort of military case. It's pretty much ready to go as is, but okay. I do really like the look of the case and the way the lock twists shut. What I plan to put inside isn't going to weigh a whole lot, so I'm going to need to add a counterweight in the bottom so the lid won't tip the case over even when I'm finished. Shawn's got a set of 3D printed thermal detonators that we actually want to put into the case. So the case has a reason, right? The case is the container that holds his 4 thermal detonators. Because it looks like they'll fit just fine, like an egg carton. Dangerous eggs. The 3D printed props were made by Clever 3D Studio and Itsy, and the printing is top notch. The parts fit together really well, and I don't see any 3D support marks on the outside of these props. I know he'll probably want to spruce up with a little bit of painting, which is cool. Gonna do a foam insert, gonna do a little bit of paneling to it, and I think I'd like to put a light in it. I want to make it do something. I have some black foam that should be perfect for the inside. This foam is left over from the airsoft minigun that I modified for the League of Legends arcane experience. And since it protected armaments previously, I feel like it's the right stuff to use today. But I have a limited amount, so I decided to make a prototype piece first. I cut a small piece and press it into the lid, making an impression that I can use for cutting. And I do what I can to keep the sides square, but the corners need to be rounded. So I want to say thank you, Adam Savage, for talking about using this cookie cutter set as circle templates, because I can find a cookie cutter circle that's very close and then trace them to make the corners. Cut it out and it's a near perfect fit. I have the shape for the foam, but now I need to figure out just how big of a circle the detonators need. I find another good fit, and at the same time, Shawn gives me a hand with a counterbalance weight. What I have is a large bolt that'll be great for the counterweight in the box. It was just a little too long to fit. So Shawn had cut off the end with a hacksaw, and now it fits, and I can bury it in hot glue so it won't roll around to the bottom of the case. I have space for 4 thermal detonators to fit inside, and a small spot on the side for some LEDs. I like to use cardboard or paper patterns, so I transfer my prototype foam shape onto some cardboard, cut it out, and mark an equal amount of space all the way around the pattern. I can set the edges of the detonators on this edge line. My concern with all the obsessive measuring is just whenever I try to eyeball something, it's always just off enough that it's obvious. So, and I never see it until it starts to become 3-dimensional and I'm really stuck with it. I have just enough space that I can use the 4 props and a 5-inch strip of LEDs. So what I'm looking at is putting the thermal detonator slightly off center, and that's going to work, I think, because there's the handle moves into the case a little bit. So it kind of, to me, it looks like it'll push things off center a little bit. So I kind of want to play off that. Well, I guess that's about all it needs to be. It needs to be right about there, doesn't it? Because they're only going to sit so tall. There's still a little bit of original foam in the lid, which is going to help hold the props in place. I just need to cut the foam for the bottom. I trace my pattern onto the packing foam and use my bandsaw to cut the block. It fits the top, but I need to carve a space for the case's handle to fit. Another way to cut foam like this is with an electric carving knife. EVA foam is a little too tough for this type of knife. But couch foam and this packing foam are doable, although this foam is pushing it for my old electric knife. This poor machine. I've made a little shelf that goes on the side, and the foam will cover the handle inside the case. The intent was to make it snug, but come on. I wanted to use the same cookie cutter for the holes in the black foam, but it's too tough for the dull cookie cutter. So I decided to try a hole cutter just to see if it'll work, and it does. Now I had a crazy idea after my last Lego foam build, an idea to be able to smooth out the walls on the sides caused by the teeth that are on the hole cutter. It's simply double-sided tape and sandpaper. I have just one layer of tape here. Now this of course would never work on wood, I would suspect. I could be wrong, it might, but I'm hoping it'll work on foam. Now, if I did 2 or 3 layers of tape, the sandpaper would stick out a little more than the teeth of the saw, and I should get a really smooth hole in EVA foam. It is slightly better. This doesn't sand quite as well as EVA does. And I realized later that the teeth were still wider than the sandpaper this time. But I used the prop holes anyway. The paper also helped me judge the depth for the holes. This foam is made from layers of thinner sheets, so it's pretty easy to pull the plug out of the holes. Now, I knew even then that I could have also cut the holes from a stack that was just half as high and then re-glue them onto an uncut sheet, which would give me a really clean bottom. But now that I think about it, I could also drill all the way through and just cut the plugs in half and glue the cut pieces back in. But I decided to just hot glue some craft foam into the bottom of each of the holes to clean them up and make them look nice. But before I glue them in, I use my rotary tool to clean the sides and make them a little smoother. I do really like the way these detonators go together, and they fit really well in the case. And they sit just tall enough that the foam in the lid is going to hold them in place. Now I want to say that I carefully measured for that to fit exactly that way, but I really didn't. I kind of guessed and really lucked out that it just really worked well. So that works. Do that. Enough wire, should be. I can always Velcro. There we are. If it's all self-contained to this, it comes in and out. Okay. So I think I've got the basic bulk of what I wanted to do, and I wanted to try and spice it up. I wanted to not just add a little bit of plates to this, which I don't know if it really needs it. I wanted to put a light in it. I wanted to make it so it did something. What I'm not sure on is I had some other lights I was going to try and put next to the thermal detonators. I don't know if I got enough space for that now. I had grand ideas, and honestly, I thought the case was bigger. Shawn had sent me detailed photos. If only I had bothered to make a mock-up beforehand. What I wanted to have happen was this strip of LEDs would flash and fill up red, and then each detonator would have its own red light illuminate. The starting sequence would then repeat in green, and the individual red lights would then turn green in sequence. An overly complicated light display, but it would be fun to do. And I really wanted the lights to play automatically when the case was open. I even had a little magnetic switch that worked with the processor. But the switch didn't quite work the way I wanted it to, so I had removed that idea even before I got to this point. But now I need to rethink my lights again, and I gotta think about how I can get the basic idea I've already put all the time into this case. I can get the strip working, and one single set of LEDs in the center of the 4 detonators. All I need to do is resolder the LEDs and make them simpler and have longer wire to reach where it needs to go. And reprogram the controller board. Now thankfully that part is actually easy thanks to my friends at Mechanics. They've developed a system that can program Arduino circuits without hard coding anything. The entire system is more like video editing. It's a very what you see is what you get type of system, even outputting to the LEDs as you program so you know that you have the correct ones lighting up. And it's a very visual way to artistically program Arduino boards, and I'm excited to learn more about the system in the future. The only real problems I had now was your typical still learning how to use the program problems. Now it took me just over an hour to resolder the LEDs and remake from scratch a new animation program for the Itsy Bitsy processor. That. Okay. So what I want to do is take these two put it inside of this is just a receipt holder, the core from a piece of receipt paper, and make a light out of it. The plastic that I have is called LED black. It looks black until light shines through it. It won't work for a visor and a helmet, but it looks perfect with LEDs. But I only have the one piece, so I cover it with blue tape before I make any cuts so I don't scratch it up. I cut a long piece to cover the LED strip, and then a circle to fit the end of the tube. I sanded the edge of the circle to get it mostly round, so it can fit inside of a random plastic ring that also just happens to fit over the end of that tube. I colored the end of this tube, which is actually the core of a receipt out of a cash register, but I like the pattern and I want to be able to see the pattern in the light through the plastic. So I remove the tape from the black plastic and press fit everything together. Then I take a huge gamble and use a little bit of the water-thin super glue to hold it all together. And it wicked through. I can see the glue around the edge. It actually wicked through. Good. Okay. And didn't get on the surface ruining it. It didn't ruin it! Not yet, anyway. It never did. It dried just fine. And I mark where I want the tube to go and use a cheap leather punch to start the hole in the foam. And then I can use a snap-off blade to get through the rest of the thick foam. Just a drop of hot glue will hold the tube in place. The LED strip is adhered to a piece of plastic to keep the LEDs flat, and I cut a channel for the LEDs to fit into. The strip is hot glued in place, and the piece of LED black that I cut is ready for glue. Just a little bit of super glue, which dries very quickly on this packing foam. And I carve out a hollow spot for the power switch. I have it just below the first layer of foam. It can still be used as a power switch, and it's hidden from view. A little high-tech duct tape will keep the switch from moving, and some duct tape for cable management. Any 5-volt battery pack will power this project. Add some Velcro for the batteries, and everything is just attached to the foam insert, which can be removed to change out batteries or to access the microprocessor. All right, there needs to be something that goes around this to finish this off. Like this has a little frame, this needs a little frame. I don't have to paint it. This is like one of the fun things. I'm giving this to a guy who loves to paint, so I gotta make it look okay now, and then I can give it away. So. Now it's time for the one thing Shawn wanted to see, my giant bin of parts and pieces. All I need to do is find something small enough to frame the LED display, and right now I really don't know what I'm gonna do. I look at a few parts, but they're not long enough or are too big for the space. The fun thing is to see what shape there could be in something that's obviously not what you're after. Well, it's not too bad of a shape. Start looking at the tiniest little details, because that's what I need is a tiny little detail, right? This shape, I kind of like, and I'm wondering if I can't cut it off the clip so it's just flat, and then cut it in half, and so I can put one half at the bottom, one half at the top, and then just run a couple of strips of material between it. Sort of make a bezel, maybe? The parts are cut off and sanded flat, but I don't like the molded numbers that are on there. So I carve out the middle, removing those numbers. I cut a strip of 3mm foamed PVC for the sides of the frame. And after a little bit of sanding to remove the raised edges that are caused from cutting, I think I have a passable frame for the LED strip. It's like, how can you take it too far? I could drill a little hole, I could put a little rivet right there. All the frame pieces are super glued onto the foam. And amazingly, I don't see any glue creep onto the plastic. It still looks clean. I set some of the thermal detonator parts in place, and I start to think that I do still need a little something in the lid. I still have a small piece of laser gun toy that I really kind of liked, and it'll fit above the LEDs. And I can add some little half pipe pieces, super gluing them onto the ends of the toy part, and it's going to fit above the LEDs and not touch the painted props when they're ready. I stick the parts to a stick so I can spray paint them black outside. And while I'm gone, Shawn seizes the opportunity to cut out some of the Star Wars graphic stickers that he has. He's already planning the look that he wants for his case. The automotive paint that I use dries very quickly on this plastic, and I can super glue the new greeble rod inside of the lid. A little extra something, sort of something else inside, right? Because I think that was part of what Shawn was after to begin with, was like, let's decorate the inside a little bit. I'm like, oh, I'll put some lights in it and I'm done. All right. Well, I think it's time to see the case with 4 thermal detonators inside. Now, what does the LED lights indicate? Well, maybe it's a reliability check for the detonators. Maybe it's an inertial dampening system so they won't explode in transport. Now, if this case ever did appear in one of those DK Books Star Wars visual dictionaries, they would tell us what all these little lights mean. But the foam will compress and they shouldn't go anywhere, so it should be safe to truck around with. Seeing a bulge on the side, but that's not from my foam. The materials I use in this video I got from all over the place. I'll put a list in the description. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing this thing fully painted and whatever additional weathering that Shawn's going to do to it. That's going to appear very shortly over on his YouTube channel called Try to Finish Something. I know it feels like this is a 2-part video. It is. But my role was always just to do the foam roll inside of the box and to add some greebles to the inside. And I wanted to overachieve and add some LED effects. So I want to thank Baconics. I've got some great friends over at Baconics that are helping me out with getting me set up with learning their no-code system for making up lighting up LEDs. And yeah, I'm looking forward to using this some more. But I think for now, there's going to be lots of different ways that you can smuggle thermal grenades into a con. But this is how Odin makes.
The timing was good too, because it started to change. And
yeah. Direct from Andor, it's your 4 thermal detonators. Pay me my hot cash. Okay, sorry. I want to thank Dial H for Hero Clicks, Sinister Props, Joshua Piesinski, and all of my Patreon supporters. Patreon members at the $5 and above level get access to my private Discord, which includes weekly games with me, prop-related chat, and early access to live streams. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.